Joining me now from Albany, New York is Bob Henson. He's the Senior Meteorologist for Weather Underground and IBM Company. Bob, welcome to the show. Looking at the global picture from Mangkhut to Florence, are they natural disasters, unique cases, or is there a pattern here?
Well, there's certainly a pattern in terms of ocean temperatures being very warm around the globe. This is the time of year, mid-September, when you would expect the largest number of typhoons and hurricanes. So in terms of timing, it's very much what we would expect. Water temperatures have been quite warm in a lot of the tropics around the world. It's been one of the warmest years on record globally, so that has probably contributed somewhat. But also in this case, it's simply that we had two very powerful typhoons and hurricanes that happen to be striking populated and vulnerable areas. So I think that's the main thing.
So when it comes to the rainfalls, the extent of the damage, in the Philippines, South China Sea, now in the East Coast of the United States, do you have any data to support our presumption that those are not isolated incidents?
Well, I would say in North Carolina, the disaster that's still going on with Florence, there are some connections, I would say, to climate change patterns. We saw this happen last year with Hurricane Harvey, as you remember, in Texas, where the hurricane moved on shore and then simply lingered for several days, moving very slowly and dumping immense amount of rain, more than 1,500 millimeters of rain in one spot, which is the heaviest rain we've ever seen in the United States from a hurricane or any tropical cyclone. It looks like the records for Florence will be the largest rainfall ever on the U.S. East Coast from a tropical cyclone. So it's pretty remarkable to be setting both of these records within 2 consecutive years. And there is some research showing that mid-latitude weather patterns are kind of getting stuck a little more often, in part perhaps because of sea ice melting in the Arctic. There's some interesting research going on about the connections between what's happening in the Arctic and what's happening in mid-latitudes. So those all are areas of active research, and it takes time because hurricanes are such variable creatures. You know, some years are very quiet, some are very busy. So it takes a long time to amass enough data to really see the kinds of patterns that help us ferret out the connections to our warming planet and changing climate.
So Bob, looking at the policy-wise, this U.S. administration made it very clear that they're not quite on board with this global climate change movement. What is the future of global climate change movement? Well, that's an actually good question and an open question.
Of course, the United States withdrew from the Paris Agreement. The rest of the world is still on board with it. Things are going to change from administration to administration. I think climate change itself is an established enough reality now that we're going to still see global progress toward addressing it. And I hope the Paris Agreement is a flexible enough instrument that will allow that to happen and to be durable so that the United States and other countries, Australia, there's been quite a bit of political turmoil around climate change and leadership of Australia. I hope that the world as a whole, that the Paris Agreement, as I was saying, is durable enough that it can transcend kind of the one administration to the next issues and keep the world moving towards addressing emissions, because we know that fossil fuel emissions are the main cause of climate change. So if we're going to address climate change, we have to both get a handle on those emissions and also deal with climate change that is on the way. There's some just kind of baked in the cake, and we have to be able to address that as well.
Bob Henson, thank you for your perspective.